Welcome everyone. Thank you for joining me for virtual mini art. Today, this is the painting we'll be working on. If any questions come up throughout your painting, please feel free to either send me an email or you can post your question below the video and I'll do my best to get back in touch with you, post an answer as quickly as I can. Enjoy, everybody. All right. So let's get started with our supplies first. And today you are going to be using a variety of paint colors. I usually like to set mine up in this wheel formation on a paper plate. That'll work. And I'll just go through the colors real quick. We have got Dolphin Gray, Summer Sky, Blue Bonnet, Laguna, Bright Blue, English Navy, Key West, Burnt Umber, Christmas Green, English Ivy Green, Lime Sherbet. This color here is a blend of the Christmas Green and your yellow. So you can mix that one or you can use another paint color that you have that's similar. We've got Peach, I've got Pink Blush, Pale Daffodil. Last but not least, I've got my metallic colors. Those ones are optional. You won't need those. You'll still have a complete painting without those, but they add a little bit of a shimmer. So this one here is White Pearl, and this one is Splendid Gold. So those kind of just add a little something. Now, if you want, because this amount of paint is going to be much more than you'll need, a little trick would be, for example, for the Laguna color. What you can do is first give it a nice shake. Second, just open it up like that and just dip your brush straight in. Okay? Because you really don't need much, and this way you'll save every last drop. Or, of course, you could do it this way if you find that easier. Alright, so we've got our paints, we've got our canvas. I am using 2 different brushes for this. If you buy the brushes I recommended, you'll find a brush like each one of these in there. So basically it is a thin, it's wide, but it's fairly narrow. It's got a rounded edge. That's going to work very well, especially for the sky and for some of the water. This brush here it's got a flat, straight edge here. It's also a wider brush, but it's even more narrow. So in other words, not those pointed detail brushes. You want to go for the flat brushes. But of course, anytime, just use a brush that you are most comfortable with. These are the 2 I'll be using. You'll also want to have a little cup of water to rinse your brushes and some paper towels. You want to make sure every time you rinse, you dry your brush off. That way your paint goes on nice and thick. It isn't watered down at all. I've also got a ruler and a pencil, and that way we can draw the nice straight horizon line. All right, so I think we are ready to go. Let's get started. So I'm finding the center, approximately where the center is, and then I'm going to go up just a little bit, like a ½ inch. I'm going to draw a nice, crisp, straight horizon line. There we go. All right, and now we're done with the ruler. Next, what we're going to want to do is make this zigzag land formation. So if you notice, it's nice and straight right here. So we're going for straight lines throughout. That'll make it look most like water. Since water, we know, is always, it's nice and flat. There aren't any bumps in it or anything. Okay. I'm going to start from the back. Just gonna go just in and out. And the one that's closest to us will be the largest. There we go. Okay, so you can see I've got some straight lines right in there and then some diagonals. I'm going to go on the other side next. this bit of land here, as you can see, it almost has two diagonals right there. We've got our straight line here and our straight line here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do my first diagonal and my first straight, then a little bit lower. I'm making this here. Okay? So we have a formation kind of like this. It's very much just a guide. It's not going to be super, super important. This will just kind of help us get the shape of our water in there. All right? And that is it for our drawing portion. Now we can jump right into the painting. So the first part we're going to paint is going to be the water. I'm going to use the larger of my two brushes. And I'm going to get some of my Dolphin Gray. I'm going to start at the bottom here. For the water, we are doing some long, sweeping strokes. You can go back and forth a little bit, get it into all of these grooves. Since it does have a little bit of a checkered kind of a texture to it, you want to get it in there. There we go. So I'm bringing it right up to the land, the edge of the land. But then I'm leaving this a little bit open here. I'm going to get a little bit more. I'm going to put some more right under this land. Right under the land here. So in other words, the gray is focused mostly near where the land is. And you can overlap for sure. So I'm covering a little bit of my lines. Not so much that I confuse myself, but a little bit. Put a little bit here. And this is a good opportunity to kind of straighten out any lines that were a little off. Right there, for example. All right, I'm going to fill in the back a little bit as well. And you keep that horizon line as straight as you can. And as you can see, as I get into that smaller area back here, you may turn your brush on its side. For this part, I had my brush this way, painting this way. For here, I turned it this way. Okay, there we go. That looks good to me. My next color is going to be my Summer Sky. So that lightest blue that you've got there. Going to fill in these gaps first. And then I'm pulling it right through the gray. So they'll mix a little bit, but not too much. You want to cover it, but you don't want to go over it too many times because it's very nice to see those strokes in there. That helps it look like water. And I'm going to keep going back and forth. Even though I'm going up through this diagonal area, I'm not changing my stroke too much. Okay, it's still going back and forth. So I'm focusing on filling in that white area, but also going over the gray a little bit. So you're going to do that all the way up. Feel free to go over some of it too, because the more times you go over it with this blue, it'll darken it up a little bit. But finding that balance so you don't go over it too many times can take a little practice. All right, so I'm pleased with this. And between these blues, I'm not rinsing the brush or anything. All right, I'm going for a little bit of Blue Bonnet next. I am putting some of this closer to the land. So couple back and forth strokes right beneath the land, a little bit back here. I only dipped that brush one time, and I'm spreading it just a tad. Pulling a few of those darker strokes right through. There we go. Okay, so you see how that water is kind of forming. There we go. Just kind of blend a little bit with it focused. The darkest parts focus right beneath the land, but then adding a little bit throughout. Okay, all right. So we're looking good so far. Next, going for a little Key West. Still not rinsing or anything. Now I'm focusing some of this in those open areas. So what I mean by that are the areas that aren't close to the land. So right in here, right in the middle. Just a little bit, and a little bit of back and forth. Tiny, tiny bit. And I'm holding my brush, as I'm doing these more subtle colors in here, holding my brush perpendicular to my canvas. So straight up and down, and I'm just lightly touching the canvas. As I move back, I'm turning the brush so that the thinner part of the brush is hitting the canvas. So in other words, I've got my wide part down here. When I get up here, I turn it this way. And I run those strokes right across. There we go. Okay. While I have this nice blue, bluish green color on my brush, I am going to move up into the sky. So same brush, I am going to grab a little bit of the sky blue. I'm going to put some here, right above that horizon. As straight across as you can get. Just about a half an inch worth of this color right across. And there we are. I'm going to take a little bit more, and I'm going to start in with this cloud formation. So as we go up, we're going to round our strokes a little bit. And these can be wherever you'd like them to be up here. There we go. So that looks good to me. You don't need much. I'm going to take a little bit of my Key West. I'm going to do something similar. Just put a little bit. And then I swept a few strokes back and forth. But as you can see, I just a couple of strokes. That way you can still see what's going on in here. Okay, I'm going to jump back down here. I would like to put a little bit more of my sky blue in here. Just running a few strokes in some of these open areas. Just a little bit back and forth. Lightly touching the canvas, giving it just a little extra dimension. Okay, we're going to now go back into the water close to the land. First thing, actually, let's change brushes now that we're doing a little more detail work. Let's give this brush a nice rinse and then wipe it off dry. Always want to start with a dry brush. There we go. All right, so we're going for our smaller brush. And what we're going to do next is we're going to take a little bit of our English Navy and right beneath the land, right where the land meets the water, I'm going to draw a nice line because it's going to be darkest right there, right where there's a little bit of shadow. Okay, and you're going to do that. On each part of the land. And one more time, just hold that brush perpendicular to your canvas. You don't need your ruler or anything, just eyeball it. And sometimes it can help to hold your canvas at different angles. That'll help you to see how straight your lines are. And as we work towards the back, our lines are getting smaller. And I'm going to sweep right across the horizon line with this color too while I have it on my brush. As straight as you can. And I'm absolutely going to just turn it and look at it from another angle. Just double check that I like my line, and I do notice it needs a little straightening out. Okay, there we go. So I think I'm happy with that. I'm going to turn it back, right side up. Okay. Without even rinsing, I'm going for a little bit of my burnt umber, so that's that nice brown. And right on top, but thinner, so a little bit and a little bit above. Tiny bit above, but overlapping a little bit. You're going to put a little bit of this color. And it doesn't have to be a complete stroke. You can have some breaks in it. There we go. So the blue serves more as the shadow. The brown serves a little bit more as the land. There we go. Alrighty. And we are all set with that. So just a tiny bit, that would be another color. You could probably just dip right into the jar if you want to, or right into the cap. Giving this brush a rinse. We're going into our greens next. So give it a rinse, dry it right off. And we're gonna go for our Christmas green. So that's that really true green. Out of the colors we picked, I describe it as the truest green. Okay, right above this line here, same brush. Do a nice stroke. It can blend a little bit. There we are. And you're just gonna do that for each of these two. And you can see I made these strokes a little wider. Wider, longer. There we are. Okay, there we go. Going to take a little bit more. Now it's time to fill it in a little bit. So I'm doing short back and forth motions. Getting that filled in. And you can see a little bit where I'm kind of focusing this, more along the edge, leaving some of this open so I can put my grass. I'm going to dip, without even rinsing, right into my English ivy green and fill in some of this space. Back and forth, let it mix a little bit. There we go, so most of it's filled in. I'm going to just grab a little extra of my Christmas green, and then what you're going to do is you're going to hold your brush perpendicular. You're going to make little upward strokes. Just like this. Just to cover some of that white. You're also further blending some of these nice greens you just put in there. Gonna get a little English navy. I like to kind of go back and forth between the colors without rinsing. There we go. And there's already a fair amount of paint right on here. So you only need a little bit. There we go. Okay, so we're adding a little bit of texture. You don't have to add that same texture all the way up. You can have some lines in there like this, just some strokes that are just kind of there. But the trick to make them look nice together is to not overblend. So see how that's just sort of there, just right on top of each other and beside each other. I extended this out just a little bit. Okay. So I'm just going up the side, doing that same thing. A few strokes here and there. Wherever it looks good to you, just put a little bit of grass. There you go. Put a little bit of that ivy color right there. There you go. So once you master this stroke, you just do that through all of it. There we go. The trick too is not to overthink it through this part. Just kind of get some paint on there, make a few grass strokes, and then you're done with that area. Towards the back, I'm going to use my last couple of strokes with mostly that ivy color, that slightly darker green, just because it is in the back. And a little bit of that grass. There we go. Okay, little highlight of my Christmas green right in there. There we go. All right, so we're all set with that side for now until we add another color in. Let's jump right over to this side. I'm going to do something similar. Just a little bit of back and forth, mixing a little bit of that Christmas green and your ivy right on the canvas. You don't need to mix it beforehand. Just double check that it's going right to the edge. Put a little bit of my grass. And you sort of put your grass right on that brownish line that you see there. There you go. And you'll notice if you have too much paint on your brush, it can make the grass a little harder to make. So you want to make sure you don't have too much on there. It just turns into blobs if you have too much. And anytime I like the color I've got on my brush, I jump around. Put a little of that all over the place. And what's nice too is because this is still wet, you're adding like a little bit of texture almost. You can see that it sort of peels a little bit of the paint that's in the background away. There we are. So it gives it kind of a nice look. All right, going to move upwards. Short back and forth sweeps. Here we are. Anywhere you see for some grass, just put a little bit right in there. Why not? As I move upward, I'm going to put a little more of my ivy color. There we go. Grabbed a little bit of my ivy color, adding a couple of little bits of grass right around here. Okay, I think I'm just about done. I don't want to overdo it. That's always kind of tricky, knowing when to stop. Okay, I think I'm all set with this right now. I'm going to just crisp this line up a little bit further. The grass area right at the horizon line, just darken it a little bit. There we go. Okay. Now, before I move on to adding more detail to the grass, I'm taking a little bit of that navy and I'm just gonna darken up my horizon line. I didn't rinse my brush or anything. There, and at this point it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. You can sort of envision maybe some foothills back there or something like that. I'm also just going to take a little bit of my navy and I'm going to just darken up some of these areas right beneath the land. And you don't have to do that. If you like the way it looks, you can stick with it. There we are. And I'm just extending just a tiny bit, giving little teeny bit of reflection down there. Here we go. Okay. All right. Give that brush a nice rinse. Let's let this grass dry just a smidge. And let's go jump into our water real quick. Take a little of that Laguna, same brush. And we're going to make a couple of strokes. Subtle. Not too much on your brush, but just a little on the water beneath that land. Tiny bit on the brush, back and forth motion. Very subtle. What's nice too with this is it covers well. If you find you put a big blob of it somewhere, you can fix that. There we go. Okay, great. I'm going to take a little bit of my bright blue, put just a very thin line, broken up line, right with my navy. A little bit back here. There we are. All right. And also, if you want, at this point, I keep adding just little tints, little bits of my sky blue. Let's give a little bit of variation in that water. And these I'm just doing not back and forth strokes, just a full-on stroke one way in a couple of spots. There, just a little highlight. Okay, the water is about done until we put a reflection from the sky right into it. So make sure you sort of like the amount of blue you've got in there. Give that brush a rinse and dry it right off. Let's finish up with the grass. Let's go to this lime sherbet color. And in a couple of spots, I'm going to make a little grass. So you don't need a lot, just in a couple of places. You can even just dab as you get back here. Just dab the end of your brush a little bit. There, that's a nice variation. Next, take a little bit of that lime color that you made, and the same thing. Just put a few here and there in that nice color. Wherever it looks like it needs just a little pop of something bright. This one's nice and bright. And while you're doing this too, just double check you don't have any negative space left on your canvas. Like for example, I can see I've got a little bit here, so I'm going to take this color, fill that right in there. Next, just going to put a couple of thin little strokes in the background with that color. Okay, looks good. We go. Okay, I think I'm happy with how this has come out. I hope you are also happy. Oh, actually, you know what? Spoke too soon. There we go. Want to add just a touch right back there. Just a little bit of dotting. There we go. Okay. Now I think I'm happy. All right. Give that brush a rinse. And we are going to jump up into the sky for a minute while we kind of let this dry. Now the sky is going to have only a few strokes. You're going to switch brushes. Use this wider rounded tip brush, and we're going to use some of these colors here, and then we're going to get involved with some of these metallics. So first I'm going to grab a little bit of my peach, and you just put that in a couple of the spaces that are a little bit more open, and you don't want to overdo it. There we go. Just a little bit. You don't want to make too many strokes. A little bit here. A bit here. It's wherever it feels right. So just a little bit. Take a little of your pink. Same kind of thing in some of those areas where you don't have much. You can overlap, of course, though, with some of these colors. Give it that nice cloud look. Whoops. And of course, if you want, grab a little more of that, of your blue or your green. That's what I just did there, kind of blended in a couple. Adding a little bit more of my Key West. All right, I'm going to give my brush a rinse before I do too much more. because we want to get into our whites and yellows. So next, grab a little bit of white. Oh, I forgot about that. Yep, you'll want a little white and a little black. A little white and a little black. We'll put our last touches with the black. Okay, so take a little bit of your white, and I like to mix it with a little bit of that pearl, that metallic color, and fill in some of this space here. Let it overlap onto that pink. All right, and you can brush it around a little bit if you want. There we go. Next, I'm gonna take a little of my yellow, just a little bit here and there. Couple of strokes, just enough. Okay. Give that brush a rinse. And next, a little bit of that nice gold. And without over blending, so you don't want this gold to blend in too much. You can a little bit. Put a few strokes right in there. Give that sky just a little something. There we go. Gonna put a touch more pink. And you can go back to, and once it dries a little bit, add a little bit more of the metallic. That'll be nice. It'll sit right on top if you wait till it's dry. Going to take a little of this pearl, and I'm going to just couple little strokes right through the water. Even going to take a tiny bit of my pink. Get a couple of pinkish strokes. Subtle is the name of the game with the pink in the water, just to give it a little bit of reflection. There. And that is something else you can go back in and add also in the water when you do your metallics. Okay, our final touch is going to be a little bit of black with your thin brush, your thinner brush, and you're just going to put little black right under your land. It can be a little bit of a broken up line too. Just a tiny bit. Helps differentiate the land a little further from the water. Go. So you don't need much. A little teeny bit goes a long way. Okay. There we are. If you wish, you can add any additional details that it looks like it needs, but otherwise you are all done and you've created your first piece of mini art. Thank you all so much for joining me. I hope I will see you again next time.